All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Timothy Young, he, him pronouns. I'm the communications specialist with the Fair Chance Criminal Justice Project from the North Carolina Justice Center. I want to thank you all for joining us here today. Today, we are going to be talking about our legislative strategies for 2023, talking about second chance priorities for next year, kind of talking about kind of in that post-election realm. So to kind of kick us off as a bit of an icebreaker, we're going to ask people to unmute if they feel comfortable or even talk in the chat. But we're just going to kind of focus on this one key question to kick us off on: what does fair chance mean to you? And so, like I said, if you want to feel free to come off mute, you can raise your hand if you would like, or you can answer in the chat to kind of answer that question. What does fair chance mean to you?
An opportunity to be heard.
Hi guys, my name is Lily Harris. How y'all doing tonight? What does fair chance? Lily. Hi. What does fair chance mean to me? Being in the Fair Chance Fellowship has gave me enough power that I can speak. A lot of people don't understand that we have power. We can speak, people. We have the power to speak. That's what fair chance means to me. We have a chance to speak. We have a chance to speak up.
This is Terrence. What fair chance means to me is equal rights as well as equity rights as everybody else have. We have this same equal and equity rights that everybody else have across the board.
I like what you said, Terrence, about there's a very big distinction between equality and equity. So I think pointing out those two components in the why both are important is awesome. Yeah.
Well, when we talk about equal rights, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, when we talk about equal rights, we're talking about we're not necessarily talking about equality in the sense that everybody have the same starting point. So you really don't have equal rights. Equity is actually the flip side of that, because it puts everybody sort of at that same starting point. In other words, if you need to be standing on two chairs instead of one to be equal to the next person, then they'll put you in two chairs. Or if you need to be in three, they'll put you in three chairs to make you equal to a person that's 6 feet tall if you need to be. If that makes sense in how equity works.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Terry. Yeah, that's especially like why we say, what does fair chance mean to you? It's not about equal chances or equal chances. What is really fair here? So yeah, thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to kind of share what fair chance means to you? I see some great comments in our chat about having resources, being able to speak, to say that equity, equality, and kind of that opportunity to be heard. Anyone else like to share? At middle schools, I won't call on you folks, so we'll make it voluntary for sure. Okay, not it. Then I'm just going to go ahead and pass it to you, Laura. Please feel free to take away.
Hey everyone, my name is Laura Webb and I am the project director of our Fair Chance Criminal Justice Project. Just to kind of level set a little bit, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just introduce the Justice Center, where many of us either work or connected to, and then our project, and some of the things that our project is working towards on a large scale. And then I will pass it to Keisha to just talk about some of the outcomes of 2022. So just to ground us, the Fair Chance Criminal Justice Project is part of a larger nonprofit, which is called the North Carolina Justice Center. The North Carolina Justice Center is located in Raleigh, North Carolina, but we really are a statewide nonprofit that works on research, litigation, policy advocacy, and communications, all in the effort to eliminate poverty in North Carolina. which, as you might be thinking like, wow, that's a huge task. Yes, it's a huge task. And the way that we try to advance this mission is to ensure that every household in our state has access to resources, services, and fair treatment that is needed to achieve that economic security. Next slide. So as I said before, our project is the Fair Chance Criminal Justice Project. It is one of the 7 issue areas at the Justice Center. And what we're doing in our project is we're looking at the way the criminal legal system causes people to go into poverty and keeps people poor in our state. And a lot of our work is with directly impacted people, concerned residents, and decision makers to try to identify and fix those unfair policies and practices so that we can help people get out of poverty. Again, our mission is to make the criminal legal system more fair from the beginning to the end, or not necessarily the beginning, but from arrest to reentry. Next slide. And why we think our work matters. We believe truly that our communities are only safer when everyone in them has the resources and support that they need to thrive. And so that's why a lot of our work is about ensuring that folks have resources and supports that they need. Next slide. And then some of our strategies include doing research with directly impacted people to identify the issues, educating community members about those issues, working with our coalition partners, advocates, and decision makers to do awareness and promote changes for those issues on the state and local level. And then, of course, we always, our main value is to make sure that we are led by those directly impacted to ensure that fair policies are enacted. Next slide. And Keisha, I'll pass that to you.
Thank you. So we are, as we continue with our work, we're always trying to think of ways to advance our statewide advocacy and build our movement of folks who are working from the East all the way to the West. And so there's some recent efforts that have been underway, both in our coalition and in our coalition spaces and in our project that we want to uplift. One is the Vigil for Freedom and Racial Justice. We're in the 3rd year of that vigil. It starts December 1st, and we're participating in that with a lot of folks across the state who are committed to kind of highlighting the injustices of the systems of incarceration we have here in the state, and also supporting folks particularly who are trying to get their commutations, get their sentences reduced, get clemency, get their sentences reduced or get pardons from the governor. We also participated in Freedom Summer, which I know some folks on this call also were a part of, which was an effort following a North Carolina Court of Appeals decision that folks who were in North Carolina who were on probation or parole would be eligible to vote. So if they were not currently incarcerated, they would be eligible to vote and were able to vote in the general election. And so there are 56,000 people eligible. And I know there were some folks on this call who helped get folks registered and support those efforts. And then in terms of our project, want to uplift that we have a Fair Chance Fellowship that we started this spring as a pilot to try to get folks more connected and advocating, directly impacted folks more connected and advocating around state policy with our legislature. And so I'll share a little bit more about the Fair Chance Fellowship. So through participating in our fellowship, hopefully, and we have, if you're on the fellowship, if you're in the fellowship or on the fellowship or a fellowship graduate, could you come off mute and say hey or shout out or something, let us know who you are.
Hi, my name is Anita Bennett, and this has been an interesting process, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
God, thank you. And I don't know if anyone else wants to say hey or wave or whatever, but we have several of our fellows on this evening. And through our program, we hope that fellows would be able to attend weekly sessions that are focused on learning about legislative advocacy in the state, beginning to think about how do we build a campaign plan and think about doing our advocacy work, and also how do we build people power. And then also hear from featured speakers, including directly impacted organizers across the state, also in a way to kind of continue to build out the network that we have with the work that folks are doing. Participate in an advocacy day, either at the state legislature or a virtual advocacy event. So for this round today is our virtual advocacy event, and then also build advocacy skills and capacity of statewide movement work. So we are really grateful to the folks who committed time. 10 to 12 weeks has been the amount of time that folks have participated in the program, both in the spring and in the fall. And so I just think that's a really huge commitment for everyone to make, and it's really been great for us. And we're excited about how we might be able to continue to coordinate efforts going into the 2023 long session. And again, continue to build out that network. So I want to turn it over to one of our directly impacted co-leaders of the Fair Chance Fellowship, Portia Bright Pittman. Portia was someone who participated in the spring cohort and then was able to be a co-leader for the fall. So we're really excited about that. And Portia is a reentry program director, a legislative assistant, and a fierce advocate. And I'll turn it over to you, Portia.
Awesome. Thank you, Keisha. Can you guys hear me? I think I'm unmuted. I hope so.
I can hear you.
Can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone over at the Justice Center. First and foremost, I want to thank the Justice Center for giving me a chance to co-facilitate the Fall Fellowship, especially all the fellows too for showing up every week, being present, participating, providing great conversation, and stretching out of your comfort zones. I know it's not easy, especially when you're in the company of strangers, just to talk about some of the things that you've been directly impacted by, but I am truly appreciative and I'm thankful that you guys showed up and just stretch yourselves out of your comfort zones. It truly showed me that you guys are ready to be greater advocates in the future. For me, the Fair Chance Fellowship has been a tool for activists. We're all in different areas of activism, but a lot of us may have not been familiar with the legislative process. So this fellowship has provided us a way to gain more knowledge and to learn how to fight for policy changes on a different level. I think that we all have seen more so in the past few years that the criminal justice system is rigged and oftentimes not to the benefit for creating an equal justice system. Now, as activists in our own respective positions, we have to figure out ways to shift power to the people and not just electing freedom fighters in political offices, but by creating armies of advocates and communities to fight year round. There's a need for people, and the needs of people across our state are rapidly changing, every day. But a lot of times those needs go unheard, or they don't get enough attention to make the agenda for those in power to make the changes. And so the way to do this, create outlets to teach, encourage, and equip people with the necessary tools to be advocates for themselves and the community. And so from my perspective, continue with the Fair Chance Fellowship will help strengthen and move forward advocacy work in the North Carolina General Assembly in order to push those policy changes that will strengthen communities abroad. Building statewide movements and strategies are important when you get to talk about coordinated strategies with lawmakers. As a legislative assistant and clerk in the General Assembly for the past 7 years, we get a lot of lobbyists who come. And a lot of times those lobbyists are not talking on behalf of the people, but they're talking on behalf of the business. So it's important to have people who are boots on the ground that are talking to the people every day, that are actually have those needs themselves, to be able to come and talk to lawmakers. And so this Fair Chance Fellowship gives people an outlet to learn how to do that. And I saw that with the fellows who were engaged in this fall fellowship, as well as the spring fellowship that what I was a part of. And so I'm hoping, in 2023 that the North Carolina Justice Center will continue the Fair Chance Fellowship so that fellows like Lily, who's fighting to get her children back from the foster care system, will be able to learn tools to approach lawmakers in the General Assembly, to show them that her voice matters and that she is not alone. And so I'm appreciative. I thank you guys for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to seeing this go forward in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Portia, for your leadership. And I will now pass it over to Lily. And we have a powerful quote from Lily. And Lily, please go ahead and feel free to get off mute and speak.
Hello, guys. My name is Lily Harris. I am great to be a part of this Fair Chance Fellowship organization. I'm going to say what my quotes say. Being in the Fair Chance Fellowship has gave me enough power that I can speak. A lot of people don't understand that you have power. We have people power. We have people power. We have people power. We have people power. And when I say that we have people power, I didn't know that you can go online and pull up laws to see what laws has passed and what laws did not pass. I did not know you can do that. Now I can go back and look and see what laws is going on that was trying to pass, and going looking at the old laws and what they did and what they can give you of what the ideas of what that we can target, guys. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it's gonna get no better. We see that today. I look at it, what I say is, the reason I said I don't think it's going to get no better. What I say is foster care is going to be full and the justice system is going to be full. And I know that, and I'm not the only one that's hurting. But if you hurting, you got to speak up. Ain't nothing to be ashamed. Let's change the shame and guilt into power people. Our past is our past. This is our future now. We're going to keep sharing our stories. If we don't share our stories, our living experience to these people down there, we will keep looking at the piece of paper that they'll keep getting. So we have to show up, show out in a respectful way. Do you understand the word fellowship? We are connecting and we are in fellowship. What am I excited about for the 2023 legislative section? My interest is for those who will be in those chairs. Will they be responsible? Will we be able to hold them accountable? When we do go lobby and advocate for the General Assembly, I am interested in what they're going to say. My goal is foster caring. My goal to target is what can we help the biological parents do? We know what we can do for foster care, but now we need to target what can we do for the parents that lost their children. That's my goal. That's my target when I go to the legislation building in 2023. What can you do for me? I have changed. So that's my story. And that's what I'm going to speak on. Thank you, guys, for letting me share my story.
Thank you so much, Lily, for sharing and for your fierce advocacy. I forgot to mention that Lily Harris is a caregiver, an activist, and also a graduate of our Fair Chance Fellowship program from this fall. So we are looking ahead to 2023. As Lily said, when we get there, what are they going to say? So here's some things that we are thinking about. First, our wins from 2022. So we know that in 2022, we were able to expand expungement eligibility. That did not mean that we got everything that we wanted, but that there were more people who were able to have access to expungements from legislation that passed in 2022. We were also able to block some sections of some bad bills that went through in 2023. One focused on public safety reform that would have created even more restrictions and limited access to legal rights for folks who were incarcerated. Another one that was focused on bail bonds that would have been a real problem for some of our bail nonprofits who have been doing work to try to help folks get out of jails. And then also one that came out of the uprisings that would have created a felony for civil disorder as it described. So we were glad we were able to block some of those things, and also when expanded expungement, have some win with expanded expungement eligibility. And I will hand it over to Laura to talk more about, oh, sorry, I can do this too. So following 2022 midterms, we are revamping our inside strategy on criminal justice. We know that the legislature looks different than it did before the midterm elections. So that means that we have in the Senate a Republican supermajority, and in the House 1 seat away from a Republican supermajority, which means that it could be very easy they could find an easier path to getting a supermajority if they're able to get a Democrat on their side. We also need to think about how we can increase visibility of folks in our movement, increase in visibility of our issues, while also getting support in an environment that has become more and more polarized and more challenging to help folks see our view. One thing that is working in our favor in that way is that public opinion polls are showing that the overwhelming majority of voters are supportive of criminal justice reform at large across party lines. And so that's something that we can continue to uplift. We also need to hold the line to keep common sense criminal justice reforms in place. So the different wins that we have had in the last several years, we want to make sure that we hold on to those things and that they don't get reversed. And as we have noted, we do have lawmakers across the aisle who have shown that they have an ongoing commitment to criminal justice reform. That doesn't mean that we don't need to be down there advocating, but it does mean that we do have some folks who understand why this issue is important, and by us being present there as well can help keep that in their focus. We also know that something that could give us some room for, or create some opportunity for some of our advocacy, is that there are more vacancies and recruitment challenges for law enforcement and correction staff. And so that kind of shows that we're going to need to do things differently. We're going to need to think about what are the ways that we can prevent folks from becoming incarcerated. What are the ways that we can think about preventing folks from getting incarcerated again, and all the things in between. And I will now hand it over to Laura to talk more about the key policy efforts and kind of the focus areas for 2023.
Hey y'all, it's me again. So I want to start off by saying that this is not an exhaustive list of what we're going to be working on and thinking about for 2023. Our project is still in the midst of hearing from folks on the ground, like all of the folks on the call, about what we should prioritize. But these key policy efforts or key priorities are ones that we know for sure that we will be pushing on for next year. So I want to lift that up in the beginning, and also offer that if you see things that are not on this list that you feel like Fair Chance and the Policy Fellowship should be prioritizing, please feel free to let us know that. We are still brainstorming and solidifying those priorities. So with that said, one of the things that we know that Keisha mentioned before is that midterm elections kind of change things a little bit, not necessarily to the death of criminal justice reform, but it's some other things that we have to consider. The only thing that I want to add is that one thing that we know, and the reason we have prioritized what we have said, is that the majority party has indicated that one of the things that they are really prioritizing this year is workforce development. And so the policies that we have lifted up, the 4 policies that we have are things that we know clearly impact someone's ability to work, right? We know that having a criminal record in general has a major impact on someone's ability to work, but these are just 4 policy ideas that we have to improve the likelihood that someone can get employed with the record. So just, we know that not having a driver's license or having a criminal record can be a significant barrier to opportunities. And so we are kind of thinking about opportunities where we can advance criminal justice through a workforce development angle. And so some of the key policies that we're thinking about for 2023 is policies to completely end debt-based driver's license suspension. We want to further expand access and eligibility for criminal record expungements to make more people eligible to take charges off their record. We want to regulate mugshots because right now mugshot companies can use a mugshot however they want and charge whatever they want. So we want to make sure that that is better regulated. And then the last thing that we know for sure that we want to push on for 2023 is repealing the North Carolina drug tax. Next slide. So the first policy area that we know for sure about is ending debt-based driver's license suspension. So from data that we have and that we receive every year, what we know is there's about 300, well, actually more than 300,000 people in our state who aren't able to legally drive solely because they cannot afford their traffic ticket. And we know that this is something that impacts African-American and low-income families the most because we are pulled over more and we're not able to pay those tickets when we get them. And because our state is a state that does not have the best public transportation, not having a valid driver's license and a car can be a complete barrier to getting and keeping meaningful employment, right? So last year, and years before, our project, along with other partners in our coalition, advocated to end debt-based driver's license suspension. Like, we don't need this, or either end it or limit it to a certain amount of time. In the past, we've said 1 year. And so there was 2 bills last year that got filed and advanced. House Bill 670, which asks for debt-based driver's license suspension to be completely ended. And then there was Senate Bill 490, which would have limited debt-based driver's license suspension to 1 year. They both advanced a little bit, but neither one of those bills became law. So we still have the law in place where someone's driver's license is automatically suspended for not paying their traffic-related court costs. So what we know is for in 2023 that we're going to continue to push on that, because as long as that problem persists, we're going to persist the fight. And so our first policy priority that we know that we'll be fighting on next year is ending debt-based driver's license suspension. Next slide. So a second policy priority that we know for sure that we'll be working on, and we'll probably be working on forever and always, is increasing access to expungements, right? Over the last 10 years, we definitely have seen expungement expand, but it hasn't gone far enough. And I'm gonna pause and make sure that everyone knows what I mean when I say expungement. Is that pretty?
Could you go over it again?
Okay, so in our state, an expungement is a complete destruction of a criminal record. It's almost like taking an eraser and erasing that charge completely from your record. And so once you get an expungement, you can legally say, I never had that charge on my record, right? So when you apply to a job, you don't have to put that down on the application once that expungement has gone through. And because of that, it can open a door that once was shut by a criminal record. So just to give some background, there's about 2 million people in our state who have some kind of criminal record, whether it's a dismissed charge, a misdemeanor, or felony, some kind. And all of those individuals face barrier to employment because even a dismissed charge, and I know this is, I might be speaking to the choir, but even a dismissed charge can be a reason for an employer to say, no, we don't want to hire you. And so, like I said, a criminal record expungement can make a major change because it can delete that record from your background. And so, as Keisha said before, we were able to see some improvements to the law happen last year. And now we have where we can expunge a lot of things. Like you can just expunge all dismissed charges, all not guilty charges. You can just expunge multiple nonviolent misdemeanors and up to 3 nonviolent felonies. But what we want to see is we want to continue to increase the types of charges that can be expunged because not all are eligible. Some are just disqualified by the law. But we also want to see expungement be automated, right? We want after a certain amount of time for those charges just to come off your record without you having to go back on court and ask for it to come off through a petition-based system. And so we, in 2023, advocates will be working to expand expungement. And some of the things that we're thinking about for 2023 is to decrease the waiting period to take convictions off your record. So right now, for one misdemeanor, it's 5 years. If you have more than one misdemeanor, it's 7 years. For one felony, it's 10 years. And then for the 3 felonies, it's 20 years. That is a long time to wait. And so we are, advocates hope to decrease those amount of time so that people can get relief from their record quicker. And then another thing we're thinking about is just how to expand the types of charges that are eligible for expungement. I'm gonna pause to see if there's any questions or if anything wasn't clear. All right, next slide, Keisha. A third policy that we want to see change is just the use of mugshots. Right now, a third-party company like the Slammer or bustedmugshots.com can get access to your booking photos and put them on their website and in their magazine for everyone to see. And right now, the law doesn't really regulate what they can or cannot do with those booking photos. One of the concerns that we see over time is a refusal of those companies to take down that booking information or those mugshots, even if someone's charge has been dismissed or someone's charge has been expunged. So if you can imagine, someone has their charge expunged, and so they can legally tell their employer that they never had a criminal record, but then that employer Googles them and finds their mugshot. So that kind of undermines the expungement or dismissed charge. And as you know, that can keep someone from getting that employment because then it calls the question whether that person didn't tell the truth. It just causes a lot of problems. And so what we tried to do last year is put laws in place that one made it so mugshot information wouldn't be public record and couldn't be given to those third-party companies, and that also made the companies take that information down within 7 days of finding out that the charge had been dismissed or expunged or facing penalties. And the penalty would have been that if they didn't take it down, they could have been sued for each day they kept it up after that 7-day mark, and they could have been sued for $100 a day. So that was a policy that we worked on last year. It passed the Senate, but it got stuck in the House, and so it did not become law. In 2023, what we hope to see is another bill similar to that, or even more expansive, honestly, to be submitted to the General Assembly and to pass into law. What y'all looking at right now on this slide is a correspondence between a mugshot company and one of our clients who had his charges dismissed. And as you see, we asked for the mugshot company to pull his mugshot down, and the mugshot company said that would be $200. And so this was a dismissed charge, right? And so we want to pass laws that stop stuff like this from happening. Next slide, Keisha. And then the fourth and last policy that we are for sure going to push on next year is ending the North Carolina drug tax. Just curious to know if anyone knows anything about the North Carolina drug tax and how it operates. Tim Young, are you on here?
I am on here.
Thank you for being here. So just to give a little background on the drug tax, we recently did a very deep study about the North Carolina drug tax, and we found that this too, like the other three policies that we talked about, has a major impact on people's ability to get employment or desire to get employment. So just as a background, the North Carolina drug tax is actually a tax, and it is brought against people who come into actual or constructive possession of a legal drug. And so that means either you have it on your person or you can have control over that drug. So under this law, a person who has, like, let's say a marijuana of a certain amount of marijuana is supposed to go to the Department of Revenue and get a stamp. And they purchase these stamps based on the amount of drugs that they say they have. And they're supposed to take that stamp and put it on their drug and keep it there until the drug is all gone. What happens is that most people don't know that they're supposed to buy these stamps. And so they don't, or they just don't want to tell on themselves, right? Like they don't want to go to a government agency and say, I have drugs on me. And so if a law enforcement officer finds an individual in possession of the marijuana or drugs or alcohol without the stamps, the Department of Revenue can punish that person by putting a huge assessment against that person that includes back taxes, penalties, and interest. And it usually is in the tens of thousands of dollars range. And because it's a tax, the government can do whatever it needs to get money from those people, right? So they can empty out folks' bank accounts, they can garnish folks' wages, they can confiscate and sell folks' property. And one of the things that's surprising about the tax is that it can apply to someone even if their charges, like their possession of marijuana charges, have been dismissed or found not guilty. It could stay in place. And so we know that this is a problem because, of course, it takes millions of dollars out of Black and brown communities and individuals' pockets. But also what we know is that because if someone who has this tax can have their entire paycheck taken or their bank accounts garnished, that really discourages people from getting employment. And a lot of people we've talked to who have the tax said they don't want to get employment, they don't want to get housing, they don't want to do anything else because they know that the government is just going to come and garnish their wages. And so because of the way the tax operates and because of how it discourages people from working, we also know that we will be pushing to repeal the drug tax in 2023. And so now I'll pass it back to Keisha and Tim to wrap up.
Well, thank y'all so much. I think several of you have been kind of looped into the work that we're doing and are, kind of going to kind of continue to be like on our listserv and keep up to date on what's going on. But there's some different ways that folks can get involved with our work in this year, upcoming year. So one is to participate in one of our 2023 advocacy days. We're working with coalition partners. We're part of the North Carolina Second Chance Alliance, for example. And so we are planning on having a continuous presence at the General Assembly throughout long session. And so I think folks are still coordinating what that might look like, but we'll definitely keep everyone posted. You can, also join debrief calls that we'll have throughout the long session, just to stay informed on the progress of what's happening at the General Assembly. So when we hear about legislation that might be helpful in what we're trying to advocate for, or legislation that might be harmful, we want to make sure that as many people as possible are aware and informed and can take action where it might make sense. So one example of that could be if one of our community partners lives in Wake County and we have a Wake County legislator who maybe just needs a little push on moving forward on some criminal justice legislation, we may encourage folks that we are connected with in Wake County to think about, reaching out to their lawmaker, just by way of example. And you can also stay tuned for future calls to action that we'll have, that will be opportunities for folks to connect either virtually or in person in other ways as things move through long session. So we do know that long session begins, I think it's the third Tuesday of January. Anita, Portia, is that the right date? I think that's when it is. It's supposed to be a long session, which means that it might take longer than short session, but because of the way things operate at the General Assembly, it's really hard to know how long or how short it will actually be. So we'll just kind of say that up front because it could be a long haul, it could move really quickly. And so that's why we're trying to get things in place before the end of the year to think about that. And just one more thing I want to mention too, is we know that there are a lot of other really, really important issues, such as what Lily raised around foster care. There's so many other issues that are really important to think about, and that might be something that is considered in this upcoming session. I just want to say that we, since we are in coalition with a number of other organizations and individuals, then we really are working to try to make sure those networks are strengthened and support folks who are advocating on different issues that may not be within the reach of our project. And so we'll continue to work on supporting folks and having those connections. Thank y'all for showing up. I don't know if there are any questions or anything else that someone would like to say at this time.
Hey, this is Terrence. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Listen, we want to pack the courtrooms on Friday morning with the ACLU, 9:30 in the morning. They have the death disqualification case with Brandon Hill. So we want to pack the courtrooms. Anybody that can be down there Friday morning, be there Friday morning. We want to have a show of force with the ACLU challenging that particular death disqualification case, the way it's set up.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Terrence, we got a question in chat of when it comes to packing courtrooms. Which courtrooms are you referring to if people wanted to get involved? Do you have a time and place that the ACLU has put out? Anywhere people can get information about this?
The only information I have is a flyer. It don't say which courtroom, but it's a capital. It's a capital case, and it's a jury case. And it's with Brandon Hill, with the death penalty on the table. And with the death disqualification, that means that you probably got a jury of almost probably 12 white men, and that's going to rule in favor of the death penalty. So the ACLU want to block that. I don't know which courtroom that is in particular, but I'm sure if we come down to the courthouse by 9:30, you'll be directed because it's going to be packed. So you're kind of, you'll be able to visually see and talk to some others that know which courtroom it's going to be. I can't tell you that right now.
Gotcha. Cool. We'll stay tuned, and hopefully we can get the information out. I also wanted to mention when we talk about staying tuned for and looking to 2023. I also want to kind of plug, we have the Vigils for Freedom and Racial Justice happening this December, and so if you want to kind of start off 2023 strong, I mean, look to December with Vigil and look into all the events we have starting December 1st, running through the entire month. We have stuff going on pretty much every day, whether it's in person at the governor's mansion or online. We have a lot of speaker events coming. So please stay tuned to that. We're going to get that information to you all. But that's a really, really great way to get things started and how we can kind of keep momentum cruising into next year.
This is Terrence again.
Yeah, go for it, Terrence.
Look, I wanted to know if anybody was at the re-entry, the simulation workshop yesterday over at Wake Tech. Did anybody participate or attend in that re-entry simulation that's on the call? Okay, I guess not. We can move on.
Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, so I was going to say, if anyone has anything else they'd like to share, we kind of want to kind of keep these meetings kind of open-ended to kind of, we cover a lot of topics. We go through a lot of stuff because, thinking on the criminal justice system is, like trying to get out of a jail made of chocolate. It's one bite at a time. So I know we cover a lot. So if anyone has any questions or anything else we want to kind of get more information about, that's what we're here for. Like I said, I'm not a middle school teacher. I won't be calling on anybody to share, but I wanted to kind of take this time to say thank you for spending this time with us this evening, to kind of look forward to the future and to kind of get motivated and get kind of ready for do this all over again next year. So I'll kind of throw us back to Laura and Keisha, and if they have any closing words. If not, I think we're good to go.
All right, you guys have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. It was great meeting some and seeing some others. And I'll pass it to Keisha for final words.
Before I say my final words, I did just hear from Kenyatta. Larry is on the phone and wanted to share something.
It's okay.
No,
it's okay.
Just listen.
Yeah, he said it's okay.
Well, thank y'all for joining again and for your continuous advocacy from inside. We really appreciate that. So thank y'all again. We'll definitely keep you posted. Like I said, we're working on creating a listserv for folks to continue to stay tuned. And yeah, really appreciate what you've done so far. And we're leaning into so much of your expertise. And I think Portia and Anita look to see us and hear from us as we prepare to head down to the legislature in the new year. Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.